Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a live recording of Dragon Talk. My name is Greg Tito, and I'm joined by no one. No one is here. It is just me today speaking to you. Shelley Mazanoble is in sunny upstate New York with her husband, who also sometimes fills in here, and the other one who fills in, Mr. Trevor Kidd, is busy. So it is just I talking to, today, Mr. Matthew Mercer about what it was like filming Force Grey, Lost City of Omu. And those of you guys who are listening to this on the podcast level, that is happening starting on July 31st. That's right. 5 p.m. Pacific time every Monday. You'll be able to check in with a new episode of Force Grey, Lost City of Omu. Dungeon Master Matt Mercer, who we'll talk to today, as well as Joe Manganello, Deborah Ann Wall, Dylan Sprouse, Utkar Shambudkar, and Brian Passain. And we'll also have an episode with Dylan Sprouse coming up very soon. So check out that tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and you can also get Twitch subscriptions for the D&D channel. You get some custom emotes and some badges, and we're going to be adding a whole bunch of new fun subscriber-only stuff there. Definitely is always good for ad-free viewing of stuff on Twitch, and if you're watching all the Dragon Talk live recordings, it's pretty good. It's pretty good value. It's only $5, so you can get your stuff in there. Also is Neverwinter Tomb of Annihilation. It came out last week on PC. Xbox One and PS4 versions will be out very much later, but this is your first chance to jump into and actually play and experience the Tomb of Annihilation storyline on your own, not just watching all these fun people play tidbits of it before the adventure comes out on September 19th. So it may love Neverwinter. It's a free-to-play. You can totally get into it. It's at playneverwinter.com to find out more, and we'll be announcing soon when it will be out on the console, so that should be coming very soon. WizKids Icons of the Realms, they have their Tomb of Annihilation minis also now in game stores. A new slew of 40 new sculpts, I believe, including an incentive pack, which has the Green Devil mask, this thing right here, in the flesh, or in the plastic at the very least. So those are in game stores now. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get to your game stores. We don't actually have copies of them here yet. Usually we get them about a week or two after they're in store. So I'll be bringing out, showing everybody what some of these miniatures look like. They look pretty darn cool. HasCon is something that Dragon Talk listeners should love hearing about, especially if you're in the New England area. Come down and hang out with us in Providence, Rhode Island, September 8th through the 10th. I'll be there. Trevor Kidd will be there. Mike Merles will be there. Chris Lindsay will be there. And Matt Mercer will be there. So we'll talk a little bit about that with him during this interview. Only a little bit, though, because we don't want to spoil anything. That game will not be streamed. He might be playing in a live game that will only be available to HasCon employees. We're still not HasCon employees. HasCon ticket holders. We'll get to that more in a little bit, but that's just a little bit of a tease. And what else is going on? D&D Beyond is always a thing. It's coming out August 15th in the reels. You'll be able to find out more about it by going to dndbeyond.com. Beta phases are 2 and 3 are all live. You can make characters using all the basic rules. It's a great tool and a compendium for quick looking up of spells, looking up of monsters, and magic items can all be done on there, in addition to creating your character with all those things. So definitely I would check that out, and when it gets out live on August 15th, take a look at it. As far as streaming goes, we got so much fun stuff happening. D&D News is on Tuesdays at 3:30, where I go through some of these announcements and I tell you about the happenings of the day. 4 p.m. Dice Camera Action with Chris Perkins is also on Tuesdays, and then Maze Arcana Fury's Reach with Satine Phoenix Dungeon Mastering is right after that. On Wednesdays, we got Misclick's D&D Risen. They're back with a new episode this week, as well as Maze Arcana Fury's Reach with Rudy at the DM. I'll be talking to Girls Guts Glory later on this afternoon, including Sujata Day, who we haven't spoken to yet. She plays the role of Ichabod, definitely the comedy linchpin to that whole group. So I can't wait to pick her brain. Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team, is happening over at Hyper RPG. We'll be hosting them, as always, at 3:30 p.m. on Thursdays. And hey, we'll host some Critical Role at 7 p.m. on Thursday. They took a little bit of a break for San Diego Comic-Con, but they're coming back into it. And we're going to talk to Matt Mercer today on this here interview about what it was like putting up all the stuff in their source book for his setting. So that's going to be pretty fantastic. He worked with some amazing people over at Green Ronin, including Chris Pramus and Steve Kenson, as well as James Hake, who we also had on the podcast recently to talk about all that stuff that's been going on there. That's it as far as crazy announcements are on. Shelly's not here, so I'm not going to talk about Betrayal on Baldur's Gate coming out on October 6th or Axis and Allies, the Anniversary Edition, even though my Russians need to make a really big attack into Poland if I'm going to get the national objective and 10 IPC swing. But, we'll get to that in a later podcast. I think we should just throw this to a segment. You want to throw it to a segment? We'll do some bings and some bongs, and then we'll call it Mr. Matt Mercer. We'll make it a thing. All right. Bing bong. That was a really good segment, and I like to talk to Jeremy, Chris, or Matt. It was one of them. I'm pretty sure it was one of them. We're so far ahead on Dragon Talks and Dragon Talk segments that who knows what segment that will be. I don't, but we'll put one in, and it'll be fantabulous. Please continue to give us more information on what segments you'd like to hear from on lore. You can talk to me on Twitter about that, at Greg Tito. Or if you want to throw some more suggestions to Jeremy, he's at Jeremy E. Crawford, which he might have just told you, but I'm going to tell you again. And you can ask him some fun questions there, too. So, without further brain blasting, Ryan Martha's got his finger on the pulse of calling Matt Mercer. We're going to do it right about now. Oh, that was perfect. It happened right away. Let's see.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing well. About yourself?
Pretty good. Thank you for calling into Dragon Talk, man.
Of course, my pleasure. Always a good time hanging with you.
Exactly. I was trying to get Utkarsh or Brian, but they're busy Hollywood folks, and so you're very busy too. But I was luckily that we got in at the right window where I was like, maybe he's available. I don't know. We'll see.
You did. You caught me literally when you said 3 p.m. I was like, that's like the only hour I have today. So it was meant to be. It was
wow. That's like, the stars and moons aligning perfectly for a window of light.
That's a way of putting it, I suppose.
Maybe I've just got the fact that there's going to be a solar eclipse in a month or so around these parts that I've been thinking about that.
There you go. Preparation, man.
Are you guys going to do anything like that? Are you going to watch the eclipse anywhere?
I probably should start planning for that, shouldn't I?
Yeah, isn't it like August 22nd, I think?
August 22nd, yeah. That will be just freshly back from Gen Con and probably recovering.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll try and do something for it.
I figured that was up you and Marisha's alley trying to get to witness that because I've never been near enough anywhere in the world where you could actually witness an eclipse. Yeah,
no, this is a rare thing. So I think if you have the opportunity to do it, just make sure you do it right and you research how to do it properly so you don't end up burning your eyes.
Don't take the advice of Greg Tito, host of the pod. Just stare at the sun. It's totally fine.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
It worked for Galileo, right?
Poor Galileo.
Was it Galileo or it was one astronomer that went blind looking at the sun? I forget if it was him or not.
I can guarantee you there were probably more than one astronomer that went blind from looking at the sun.
It's a very dangerous occupation. The church could excommunicate you. You could be burned at the stake. You could be blinded by the sun.
Yeah, those are rougher times for a man of science. Let me tell you.
Who knew that being a voice actor for games and a dungeon master for hire would be a less dangerous occupation?
So far. We'll see. The internet has its own opinion, so.
That is true. So you guys, I mean, I was trying to think the last time we talked to you, was that before the Force Grey Lost episode that we spoke?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's about 6 months. Always good to check in with you at least every 6 months. How has it been in the internet fandom?
Oh, it's a roller coaster, man. It's a really exciting thing, like to have just such an amazing community to rally around a hobby that, what wasn't there when I was younger. Being able to see a new generation excited about role-playing games and an older generation coming back to them, and in the middle you're having 2-3 generations of gamers all at the same table creating new adventures. I think it's really amazing. The attention's different.
Right, because you didn't always have like a peanut gallery talking about every move you made as a dungeon master before.
Definitely didn't have that before. It would just, and for the most part, people are really, really cool about it. People are just excited and they're invested and they want to, let me know if I did something wrong, which is fairly common because that's what happens when you're a dungeon master.
It is.
So it's cool that people are invested in wanting to help out, and then you get the peanut gallery here and there, like, well, that was a poor choice, or that was terrible, or that was shitty, and you're like, yeah, well, that's just your opinion,
right?
Man.
When you think about it, Statler and Waldorf didn't actually make anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But the
Muppets were making something.
That's true. But the way they're dressed and the fact that they always had that top balcony, they probably made something a long time ago that got really,
that's
really
probably
popular.
True. Right.
Like oil baron status. They haven't had to work in 25, 30 years.
What I like it better that they're actually like ex-theater people too. Like, they're out, they're retired, but they feel like they can still comment on the young whippersnappers that are making the theater.
Which, to be fair, you earn that right when you become an old person, in my opinion. So, for all the basement grognards that hate what we do for D&D, like you totally earn your opinion, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I doesn't mean I don't necessarily listen to it, but you're entitled to your opinion.
It's true. Well, I see the fight that you go through sometimes, and I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to have the positive frame of mind of like, exactly just like that. Like, yeah, you're valid to make those criticisms. They're very valid, but like, the performance of your game went a different way,
Yeah, and I try and push the fact that every game is unique and different in its own way. There are many things that I do when I run my games that work really well for my players, but would work really poorly for other game tables and vice versa. There are many incredibly talented dungeon masters out there that are really good at things that I'm not. And I would probably not have a great time at their table, or conversely, they'll do things a lot smoother than I would. I'd be like, wow, they're running this really smoothly. Every table is different, and every game style and experience is different. So if you don't like the way I run my games, that's totally fine. There's your home game, which is run exactly how you want it to be played, and there are other examples of other great streams if you wanted to watch something else that I'm sure matches closer to your style. You don't feel you have to be shackled to my theatrical ways. It's just the way I do it.
It's a cool way, and I like that you've totally surfaced it. But you're right. Since you guys have been on the air on Critical Role, there's been a proliferation of many other streamed shows out there.
Yeah, it's been really amazing. Like incredible communities, a lot of just really genuine and talented people. We had the opportunity to hang out when you guys ran your Tomb of Annihilation stream.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming, by the way.
Of course, thank you for having us. It was a blast. I jump at the chance to play in a game every now and then.
Nice.
And to run with new players. The whole Girl Scouts Glory crew are fantastic people, and it was really fun to play with them. And to watch their fledgling channel get all this new attention is really, really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Their like fandom of Dungeons and Dragons is so like new and pure. It's always like, oh wow, that's amazing.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And Mark Humes, you guys have been working with him. Like I've known him for, 14 years. We were both like across the pond pen pals. We met at a convention years ago because of cosplay and general, video game anime nerdery. And we would always, whenever one of us was in the other's country, we'd get together and just play D&D for the weekend. And then now here we are, both somehow helming Dungeons and Dragons streams. It's just a really strange turn of events that nobody expected.
That is bizarre, yeah. And I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast, but you worked on There Will Be Brawl, which was a show that I was on the tail end of helping to produce at The Escapist. But it blew my mind when I knew you from Critical Role and all your video game things. But it was like, wait a second, you were a creator on that?
Yeah, the internet has its own very unique historical lineage that it's really amazing to follow all these different people through the years and see where they've ended up, and what things have taken off, which things haven't, and that was a labor of love. For those who don't know what the hell we're talking about, in 2009, 2009, I directed and performed in a web series that was a very super low budget. It was my first real directorial debut.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'd never really been behind the camera before as a director. And so it was a kind of live action film noir HBO crime drama version of the Nintendo Smash Brothers universe. So it was like a dystopian Mushroom Kingdom. Princess Peach goes missing, of course, and Mario is the lost hero who can't find himself. So Luigi is the protagonist who has to go through the dark alleyed streets between the different mafia dons, King Dedede, Ganondorf, Bowser, and try and find out what this mystery is about. And it takes itself super seriously, which is where a lot of the comedy comes from. It's everyone's in ridiculous costumes and makeup, and it is nothing but hard knocks, it fully invested in itself, and we had a great time doing it. I met some wonderful people that are still some of my closest friends today, and it nearly killed me. And when all was said and done, I made a grand total of negative $4,000 on the project. But
yeah, internet video is not necessarily the most lucrative thing if it doesn't catch on. That was always the hard part.
Yeah.
But I love the hard-boiled, Luigi kind of going through the motions. I felt like he was the moral center of that whole story and was trying to do what was right in a world that was broken. And you're right, HBO crime drama. I never put it together, but it did feel like a Sopranos in a Mushroom Kingdom.
We tried to. We definitely overreached our budget and capabilities a number of times, but we didn't really care. Right. And somehow it came together. Each episode kept getting progressively longer. Somehow we were like, oh, we'll just shoot this other. Everyone on YouTube, especially at the time, was like 3 to 5 minutes. We're like, nah, our last episode's going to be a half an hour long. Sorry, guys.
And if I remember correctly, that last episode took 6 months to produce or something. It was we had all the ones in the cadence, and we're still waiting for the finale, and then it came, right?
It wasn't quite 6 months behind. It was definitely about a month behind.
Okay.
But that's because I was also editing it and doing half the post.
And playing Ganondorf, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I played the villain Ganondorf in the series, so it was a very, very. Everyone was wearing many hats, and no one was making any money on it. We were all doing it just for passion and friendship. So it was the very epitome of blood, sweat, and tears.
Did you ever think, and I'm sure at that time that felt like that was the biggest project in the world and how it was all falling apart and blah, blah, blah. But did you ever think that the weekly D&D game would be the thing that so many people would know you by?
God, never. The D&D has always been my refuge. It's been my creative safe space. And it's what got me into acting. It's what got me into so many elements of my life. So to me, it was a very important thing that was at home. And so when we were asked to do the stream, we had to have a lot of talks about it. We were like, I don't know, are we comfortable with this? Is it going to work? I don't want it to feel different for us. I don't want to feel like we're having to perform for an audience. We want to still keep this magic of the game that we have for ourselves, but I guess invite other people in. And the things that kind of pushed me over the edge to say yes for it was, one, we wanted to show a generation of gamers that maybe don't have an idea of how role-playing games really work. Mm-hmm. Don't have an example of oh, it's not that hard. I can do this. And so I wanted to put a show out there that people could watch and be like, oh, okay, I get it. So that's how D&D works? I can play that. And secondly, eventually try and tap into the audience to dispel the myth that dungeon mastering is impossible. Mm. I grew up in that long 15 year stretch of, for me at least, of gaming where everyone was like, well, we all want to play, but nobody wants to dungeon master. And I wanted to try and somehow dispel that and offer tips and tricks and try and get people excited about the other side of the screen. And so we decided to go ahead and do the show and give it about 6 weeks. And now we're on our 106th or 7th episode. I don't even know.
Totally insane. And that's funny because as D&D being the escape from the entertainment world, I think that was very similar to Deborah Ann Wall. I spoke to her last week, and she was saying she's obviously a working actress and is all in the thick of producing shows like Daredevil and Defenders and all that. But D&D to her, at least for the last 5 years, was just an escape, and she wasn't sure she wanted to make it a job before she was thinking about doing Force Grey, Lost City of Omu. So yeah, did you get a sense of that when she came in the room, or did she just jump right into it?
Well, she jumped right into it, but I think Joe definitely primed her on that. He does that. He's my favorite muscle man when it comes to get your shit together and role play. It's wonderful. Anybody who has any sort of doubt or trepidation, he's like, no, seriously, you'll be fine, and then kind of gives him a nudge, and it's great.
Yeah, hard to turn that down when it's someone like Joe Manganiello being like, well, yeah, go play. And you're like, okay.
Physically imposing person telling you to go play D&D, yeah, you say yes. But no, it's funny, when we were maybe a year into the show, Sam Ringel, one of our players, his wife, who's a really talented director of photography for film and television, had worked on a project with Deborah, and they had talked about D&D on set, and Deborah would just kind of come out in some interviews about her love of D&D. Yeah. So Sam was like, we should get Deborah on the show as a guest. I'm like, well, let me look it up. And I read about some of her interviews. I was like, okay, she's legitimately a fan of the game and loves the idea of playing. And that's the kind of person I would be, I would be willing to have as a guest on the show. So we reached out to her, and she declined with an email saying just that this is something very personal to her. And I guess she watched an episode and paid attention to Twitch chat and saw how aggressive and intense it could be, and that kind of, that's a rough experience for anybody. So I as soon as I saw a response, I was like, I totally understand. I've been in that position, not a worry at all. Thank you so much, and if you ever change your mind, but I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I was very excited that when she decided to come on for Force Grey, that because it was a little more controlled space and it was with people that she knew, that she could feel comfortable playing the game how she wants to, and not be worrying about that perpetual internet, torch and pitchfork squad that occasionally shows up.
Right. So what was it like, integrating her into Force Grey? Because you had done, I guess, 7 episodes of the previous show with a different, group of cast, with Chris Hardwick starting it out, and then the introduction of Brian Posehn's character, and then we added Dylan Sprouse characters, T-Roll Tall Guy, and Emily Vita Gordon for the Lost episode.
Yeah.
And then adding 2 new characters. How did it feel, as having a cohesive whole here for the second season?
Oh, it's freeing for a second season because you already have the premise established.
Right.
And you get to play a little more in that space. And you guys had given me some of the material for the for Chult and some of the adventure elements. So it was just kind of this very cool moment of, okay, what can I build in this space that would be unique? And I want not really spoil too much for the book, but also, be a good tale for these adventurers. And so it's great. We had some returning cast. You always want some comfortable people there who can kind of help usher the newer folks in. And I really enjoyed the process of bringing people into D&D who have never played before. It's a wonderful spark, a singular moment in each player for their first game when all of a sudden they get it, and you watch their kind of imagination open up, and they can be like, I can try anything. And you're like, yes, you get it. I love that moment. But it's also, it can be a little awkward, and you have to kind of finagle a bit and nudge along. And because of the email I had with Deborah, I was worried that she would be uncomfortable in that space a little bit, and I was prepared and expecting to kind of, bring her and some of the new players in to be a little more, join in with the old school folks a little bit.
Right.
That was not at all what happened. Deborah came in swinging. She knew her character well. She, out of the gate, just owned it. And I was like, oh my God, yes, you're my favorite kind of player. This is fantastic. So no, she was an absolute delight, and brought a really, really cool, interesting edge to the group that I think our more lighthearted first season kind of lacked, if that makes any sense. She definitely had this, and as you'll see in the episodes like that, she has a little more of an intensity and a drive to accomplish that I think is, you need at least one person in each group like that, or you'll end up going in circles.
Right. You need like an instigator or a someone who can drive the plot forward and not just laugh at it. Right.
Exactly. And so between her and Joe, we were pretty solid on people that were eager to lead to the next bit or do what it took to seek the information they required. It was a lot of fun.
Did you get a sense that each of the people there had a different play style, and did that help, or was that your job to kind of try and make them all feel like they were all feeling that their character had something to do?
I mean, both, I'd say. I mean, when you bring a different group of people from different game tables, their play styles are going to differ. And part of your job as a dungeon master is to kind of be open to listening to what it is they're trying to accomplish and how they want to play their game.
Right.
You don't want to shut them down and tell them, no, you're doing it wrong, play my way. You kind of have to meet them in the middle. So it's been really fun to kind of watch each person's focus, whether it be, comedic takes on existing circumstances. Utkarsh is really good about taking a scenario and finding the comedic beat, but still being the action hero that he sees Hitch to be. We have Joe, who knows this character really well, who is a forceful personality who will do what it takes to get what he wants, and at the same time he respects softer narrative moments, and it makes this interesting dichotomy for his character than you'd expect from this very gruff and aggressive Dragonborn. Then you have Brian Posehn, who, as we saw in the last season and this one, he is so fast with the comedy and has this great kind of abrasive quality that he's given with Penelope that just sorry, not Penelope, what's her name?
Calliope.
Calliope, thank you.
Calliope, sorry.
The Calliope. First off, just the duality of having a half elf female bard with Brian Posehn's voice is just a wonderful experience in its own right. But he's owned it more in this season and definitely plays up elements that I think he told me afterward he has never really played a character like this before. He usually plays the kick in the door fighters, and it forced him into a out of his comfort zone as a player. And knowing that, it was really fun to watch him kind of step into that role and take over elements that involve the charisma and taking the scene and driving his personality through to victory. So these are all little facets that as a dungeon master, when you watch them happen, when you watch the player kind of take hold and step out of their comfort zone or take their play style and tailor it halfway to yours, and all of a sudden they all come together as a cohesive group that now they know how to push forward together. It's that to me is the reward for a session plan.
Right. Yeah, no, and that is a good reward. And I do love that when players go outside of the norm that they like to do, because it's so freeing. You get to do, like you can, even in playing in Dungeons & Dragons where you can do anything, you can get into certain ruts where you're like, I've been playing this same, person, and I know his ins and outs, or I know her ins and outs, and I know what she's good at, and after 106 episodes of or sessions of the thing, like you can be like, let's try something different. Let's do different things. And I think you guys with Critical Role have been doing that with doing the one-offs and doing different projects here and there. But it's interesting to see the actors do that for this, because they all have their own. Brian's got his podcast. He's got Nerd Poker, where he does have a much different kind of more comedic friends getting together and playing Dungeons and Dragons feel than the drama that Deborah, Joe, and you can kind of bring to it in this.
Yeah, and let me definitely not leave out Dylan Sprouse.
Yeah,
who he brings a quality to the table that I absolutely adore in players, which is the thinking outside the box player. The person that isn't driven by the surface read of whatever a spell's capability is or an ability's write-up is. You'll see that and go like, okay, now let my imagination find a weird way to use this. And it keeps me on my toes, but it also just makes it a very unique narrative each time that he brings one of his skills to the table or he takes charge of a challenge. And we saw it a bit when he played with us at the Egyptian, and you'll see a bunch of it throughout this season. He has some golden moments with his druid, with a Tyrell Tall guy, where you think to yourself, I wouldn't have necessarily thought to do that. That's really weird and awesome, and
right?
Kind of really saved the moment,
Yeah, so, like it was super effective.
Yeah,
I remember at the Egyptian theater. Didn't he turn into? He was a smaller creature, and then he turned into a porcupine inside someone's face.
Inside someone's face, yes, and they failed the saving throw and detonated their head.
Oh God, I have like nightmares of that image still in my head. Like, Pinhead from Hellraiser, but with porcupine spines coming out. It's terrible.
Yeah, he summoned a large toad to be up on a raised area within their final boss battle area, and it used his tongue to grab him, and he could swing like an Indiana Jones whip. That's the kind of ingenuity that makes D&D moments history and make you remember them the rest of your life.
Right.
So I love it. I loved having him on board for more than just that one onstage show he did. He's a great addition to the Force Grade team.
It is. It's really fun to watch, and I've heard rumors that he gets even more creative in this season. Although I haven't seen the episodes. Both Nathan and Bart are like, "Whoa, wait till you tell me what he does next." So I can't wait for that.
It's fun. It's a good time.
So we're going to debut the first two episodes tonight, actually, for those of you who are watching on the Twitches. But on July 31st, it will already be out for those of you listening here on the Dragon Talk podcast. So what do you happen to remember what happens in the first hour or so you guys were recording? Oh, wait, maybe we could talk a little bit about how we recorded it. So this was filmed over, 2 days in LA?
2 days we shot in Los Angeles. They had an awesome studio set up kind of south of Los Angeles with a living room build, which was a little more comfortable than the first season, which was kind of like like a nouveau basement feel. I like feeling like I'm playing in someone's living room. It just kind of brings it home for me. So
yeah,
the set was great, the crew was great, and yeah, it's very interesting to show up as a dungeon master when you have so many things in your mind that you've had to remember and prepare for, and you're still calculating and trying to get enough ready for whatever weird things your players are going to try and do, and then have somebody walk over and be like, I need to get your mic on you, and you'll be sitting there, there's the light, make sure you don't, it's a weird combination of having to concentrate on both at the same time.
Yeah, as both a performer and like the performer who's playing this game, right?
Yeah, and I feel really bad for the crew that had to deal with the fact of me forgetting everything they told me, because once you're in the moment, you're in the moment. You're in your imagination. Your friends are playing make believe and rolling dice, and I'm sure at the end of each day there was 2 or 3 sound guys just like shaking their heads, going, Jesus.
So, well, I doubt they were doing that. I'm sure that if they're good sound guys and or D&D fans, I'm sure they were just happy to be there watching the magic happen.
I hope.
Ryan, my sound guy, just looked at me and shook his head. He's like, "No,
what I'm talking about.
They hate it all." But so yeah, was it so when you're doing that, and this is something that people who have only really done streams of dungeon mastering can really kind of answer. Like, does it shut off for you, like the cameras and the mics, or does it take a while for that to happen, and then are you just in the game? Like, yeah.
It takes a little bit. It is, especially if it's not in your usual home setting. Most game groups, once you have a groove going, you'll have like a place that you usually play, whether it be like at a cafe or a game store, or a certain person's house, or a few different people's houses.
Mm-hmm.
Going to like a set, it's a little strange, a little jarring at first, but I think the importance is to make sure that everyone at the table can see each other, and that you can still maintain that connection of storytelling that makes the magic of role-playing games in D&D. So it does take a little bit getting used to, but not as long as you think. And then once you're there, once you're in it, they all disappear. I forget the cameras are there every week. I've been doing this for a long time, and as soon as we're all at the table, we're all poking each other and bullshitting each other, and just being our stupid friend selves. And then the show starts, we finish our announcements, and then once we dive in, it's just us at the table rolling dice and telling a story, and we kind of forget the camera's there until I'm looking at the clock going, oh, we should probably take a pee break, shouldn't we? Okay. It's a unique juggle, but yeah, it's easy to get lost in it.
I still have that very distinct memory of Brian Posehn taking the pee break at the Egyptian Theater. We played for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I think he broke character, was like, I just really need to pee, and he sprinted off of the stage to the nearest bathroom as soon as he took that break. I'll never forget that.
It was amazing. I really think that Wizards is a lost opportunity without expanding into their catheter market. Hardcore D&D gamers. I'm just saying, guys.
I got my wife one of those female urinal things for when we went on vacation. She's yet to use it, so I feel like that's the same thing. If anyone ever got me a catheter, I'd be like, ha ha ha, no.
Yeah, no. But then every now and then, in those long game sessions, you think back to that little bookcase that you have it on as a joke and go, well... No, actually, please, nobody ever do that, please.
This podcast is full of bad advice.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your campaign setting getting kickstarted, right?
It didn't get kickstarted. I was lucky enough that Green Ronin approached us a year ago to produce it. It wasn't something I ever set out to do.
Yeah.
It was literally just a small little homebrew world that I built for a one shot that then turned into a campaign. So I just expanded and expanded it. And when Green Ronin approached us about doing the campaign guide, I was like, sure. I've never written anything like this before. Okay.
I've got lots of notes that might be able to read.
Yeah, they're all shorthand for me and for nobody else to really read. And okay, so yeah, thank you. It was a really amazing experience, a really difficult experience in some ways, but I learned a lot through it, and it was wonderful to kind of take the notes that I had, flesh them out, and then expand through the little open spaces in between to build this wholly realized continent, and then present it with enough optional abilities, rules, and story hooks that any gamer, whether new or old, could draw something and some inspiration from this book and make it useful. That was my main goal.
Nice. And I bet fans had always been like, I want to be able to play in your worlds, and now they finally get the chance to at least, feel like they had all the hooks and all the lore and all the history, at their fingertips.
Yeah, that was kind of the intent behind it. And I've been so scared, like leading up to the release of the book, because we have so many great settings that exist out there, from like Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Dark Sun, Eberron, if all of these, Greyhawk, the original Greyhawk, like so many of these well-realized D&D settings, many of which were designed to be a setting, from the very inception. Right. It was like, let's create a unique and interesting setting for players to dive into. This was retroactively building a setting based on a world that I'd built to be initially just to be a pretty vanilla fantasy D&D world for my players who'd never played before.
Yeah, you like on purpose made it so that it didn't feel too alien from other fantasy out there, right?
Yeah, because for a lot of the people in my game, it was their first foray into it, and they'd seen Lord of the Rings, they were fans of general fantasy and fantasy video games, so I wanted to make it something familiar but still unique. Mm-hmm. And that's why Tal'Dorei, this one book, it's the youngest of all the continents. It's the most classic fantasy of them all. Its history is not quite as long and as in depth as the other parts of the world. And the thought process was, as I was developing the world, that if this book does well and we decide we want to develop more in the future for the other continents I could get a little more unique with. I can build their themes to be a little different, so you don't feel like it's just the same type of fantasy book over and over again. Right. Each one has different genre themes to it, and mixes up some of the cultural and societal elements of the Tal'Dorei book. So I was pretty excited and scared at the same time to kind of put this out there in the world, and was waiting for the slings and arrows, but people seem to be pretty happy with it so far, and I'm definitely breathing a sigh of relief.
Nice. Well, congratulations. I think it looks awesome, and I haven't been able to delve too much into it, but I can't wait to flip through those pages and actually feel it for reals.
Thank you very much.
And you don't sell yourself short, because a lot of those settings that you mentioned, like Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance, even, they occurred through play. They were, the Gary Gygaxes and Dave Arnesons and Ed Greenwood's homebrew worlds at first, and they took other people to jump into them to kind of make them as fully realized as they are now. So it's very similar, and now the funny thing is gosh, you could do that for other people. You're going to inspire people to play in your world, and you as the I guess you'd be the founder of this whole setting. You'd be able to be like, all right, well, that's canon now, and that's part of the world, and that's pretty
so
fantastic.
Weird. That's so weird to me. Yeah. It's all still very fresh. I'm still and let me not forget to thank James Hick, who helped me tremendously on the book. He was my co-writer on a number of aspects of it. He's extremely talented. I know you guys have had him on the podcast before.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Shout out to James.
James, you're phenomenal. He saved my ass on that book, because there's only so much time in a day, and between voiceover, which is still my full career, and then all the Critical Role prep on the side, and then now the book, I was very quickly rocketing to insanity or an early grave if I continued to wield it all myself. And his writing style is smooth and clever, and he knew the world really well. And as soon as he came on and started giving me, elements of his writing, I was like, oh, thank you. You are exactly what I need on this. And his contributions to this book have been humongous, and I hope to continue to work with him on future projects. So thank you so much, James.
Way to go, James. I can't wait. That's pretty awesome. But definitely when we talked to him, it was like, it was the right place at the right time. But it's super great to hear stories like that.
Right place, right time. But also, I'm a big fan of the, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
And he was very prepared and was very skilled at what he did, had the right attitude, just positive and wanting to build and create together. And that to me is most of it, really. So don't let him sell himself short either.
Well, mad props in any case. And yeah, I can't wait to see, a Gen Con. I'm sure there's some, well, maybe not this time around, but maybe for other big conventions, you'll see people being like, we're going to play in Tal'Dorei,
I hope so.
Come join our game. That's pretty amazing, man.
It's so weird to me. I love it.
So, did you want me to write the novels set in Tal'Dorei? Do you want that?
Oh God, that's such a crazy. Like, yeah, right? I can't. There's too many. We'll see.
Because Matt Colville's also doing the comic books, right? I didn't even think about that. I just remembered.
He is. It's been really interesting. Like this whole Critical Role's phenomenon, and I say phenomenon because none of us planned for it. None of us knew any of this was going to happen, and there's this continual agreement that we have as all of us who are involved in it to not ever let that phenomenon overshadow the joy of what this is to us in the community. And it is the community. We're but a game, but the community has risen up and really become the star of this whole interesting, weird thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything we've been doing has been reactionary. The campaign guide was reactionary to Green Ronin approaching us because there was a demand for it. The comic book, people have been clamoring for forever about ways to tell the stories before we started streaming, because we had 2 years of home gaming that nobody got a chance to see, and now that they're invested in this world and these characters, they want to see those early stories. And so we decided to maybe pursue a comic. And Colville, who me and Liam had worked on with the game Evolve and become good gaming friends with, I love his writing style. His dialogue is incredible, and his understanding of the genre, his understanding of D&D, it was too perfect a fit for me to not ask him if he could. So me and Liam had lunch with him, and he said, yeah, I'd love to. And so that was a huge match made in heaven.
Nice.
And then we had artists to knock down, and we had a bunch of artists that were recommended to us through Legendary and other sources, and very talented people. But for us, our characters, it's about the personality, it's about the conversations, it's about the expressions more than it is the big muscles and dangerous weapons. And we couldn't find any artists that really got the fantasy style and the personality in there. And we kept looking at all this amazing fan art in the community that really kind of captured the look we wanted, and we kept giving these examples of fan art to the Legendary, going like, well, more like this. And eventually we're like, no, let's just bring one of these guys in. So we always want to try and lift the community up and bring people into this crazy phenomenon and give them a chance to shine. And so we were very lucky that the artist Olivia Sampson, who is one of our fans of the show and had done a lot of fan art for up in the community before, was interested in doing this. She'd never done a comic book before. She was kind of asking us, how do I do this? And we're like, we don't know. Talk to this person. They can maybe show you. And so it's just been this really cool collaborative experience of all of us trying this for the first time together, and it's turning out incredible. And I'm really excited for you guys to check it out.
Nice. Do we have a timetable on when that's going to be out yet?
I'm waiting to hear back the specifics on that.
But this year, next year?
That we're definitely going to get it probably out digitally this year.
Okay, good.
At least a number of issues, and with the long-term plan of shortly after these first 6, maybe a graphic novel collectible afterward. Because I'm a graphic novel collector. I need to have the physical thing in my hand.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I do wait for trades for sure. Something about the having that book on the shelf that makes me. Which reminds me, I still need to get the third Rat Queens trade.
I need to.
I need to. I have a Chris Lindsay was going to let me borrow it. I need to bug him again. But that is super cool, and I like that you got in a fan artist to do that. I'm super fascinated by the comic book genre too, because I wouldn't say I'm a comics fan at all. Like I never had that part of my fandom when I was growing up. Like I was always fantasy and gaming, but never really comics. There was no comic book shop in my neighborhood. So I was always super fascinated by it as I got more into it in my adult life. And it wasn't until, it was only 2 or 3 years ago where I realized that when you write a comic book, you write it like you do a movie script. There's here's here's who's saying this when, and then you have kind of directions of this is what I want the art to be like, or that kind of thing. And that totally clicked for me. I was like, oh, of course it would be. And that's why so many comic book writers go on to TV or vice versa, and they go back and forth between them somewhat easier than you would say other genres. So yeah, that's super fascinating.
It's a very, very familiar process either way. What I love about comics too is whereas in film it's the writer, the director, and then you have the art department, you have the actors, you have all the various costuming, you have all
There's
these different
so many different departments that have to work together. Yeah.
And in comics, you have like 3 or 4 people that do all those things in that space, and so you have the opportunity to tell incredible stories at a much smaller budget, but also, as one of the wonders of sequential art and why I love it, is it allows you to kind of fill the in between the panels, the whole theory behind comics. I love it. If you haven't had the chance to read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, highly recommend it. It's an incredible book that basically breaks down the history of, the meaning of, and the real strengths of sequential art and comics as a storytelling art form. It's wonderful.
I love that book. And actually, when I got that as a teenager, I kind of, it was an aha moment for comics for me.
It's so good. A little bit of weird trivia for you.
Yeah.
Back in like 2001, I did a lot of community theater, and I became friends with this woman named Ivy, who we did like 3 or 4 shows together. And so she started inviting me over to her house for game night every Friday. And so we'd all play games every Friday for like 2 years. And I got to get to know her and her family, her kids, Winter and Sky, and her husband, Scott, who I didn't realize 2 years later, it was Scott McCloud. It was that Scott McCloud.
What?
And I was like, oh, okay. Hi, I didn't know that. We've been friends this whole time, just being board game nerds.
That's so funny.
He put out a book about 2.5 years ago called The Sculptor. It's a wonderful graphic novel. It's like his magnum opus. It's beautiful. I recommend reading that if you get the chance. But I modeled the lead for that for him. We did a series of photo shoots over the period of 3 years for reference for him as he did the comic, and I played David, the main character in that. So if you get a chance to read the book, if you look through, you'll see little bits of me kind of squeak through the art here and there.
Well, that's
and
cool.
Like, it's a fun little bit of trivia for the folks out there.
That is pretty awesome, man. You're you got your fingers in so many different pies. It's kind of nuts.
It's weird. I should sleep soon.
How is that been going? How are you okay?
I'm good. No, I joke about it, but I'm better than I did last year. I think last year got a little intense. When you spend most of your adult life living as an actor, you live a very meager lifestyle, and paycheck to paycheck, taking odd jobs to do whatever it takes to still live.
Yeah.
And you say yes to everything. And these past couple of years have afforded a lot of wonderful opportunity that I'm so thankful for. But it's hard to break that habit of not saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And if you say yes to too many things, you get stretched too thin and you begin to burn out. And so that was a big worry of mine. I had to teach myself when to say no, when to really concentrate on self care and schedule time just for me and Marisha, and to be a couple. We have a wedding coming up in a few months, and we have to make sure that we don't, work ourselves to the bone leading up to that. So
right.
Last year got a little hairy, but we've learned some lessons and we're doing better now.
That is good. Because it's hard. It's a hard transition. I think, maybe just because I listen to a lot of podcast interviews with celebrities or people who recently get celebrity, or they're talking about that transition from, being the out of work actor into, oh crap, I have money now. What do I do?
Yeah.
Or like I have so many people who have demands on my time is actually more the problem. And it's always that hard transition of like, it's basically like, you have to be in a chrysalis for a little bit, and then you break out and you're like, okay, now I'm a butterfly, and almost create like a different lifestyle, right?
Yeah, very much so. And like me, one of the hardest things for me to ever do is disappoint people. Yeah. It's just been a serious, like deep emotional problem I have with disappointing other people. And you have to learn and realize that you can't make everyone happy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you will disappoint people, and that's just how it is. You just have to do your best to make it respectful and help them understand that it's just circumstantial. And so that's been a big lesson for me, is how to distinguish between those choices and express to those people that I have to say no to that, I'm only doing so for my own health.
Right. And that's a very good quality for a dungeon master, to make sure everyone else is happy and you're not disappointing anyone.
True. But also don't forget, if you're ever burning out as a dungeon master, talk to your players about that. I said it in one of my GM tips, like it's okay to express if you're starting to get a little tired, a little worn, a little burned out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you keep pushing through that, you might eventually really burn your love of the game for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I've met and known people that have done that. So, players, I implore you to be open and respectful if ever that conversation comes up, and be eager to maybe take a break from the campaign for a few months, and one of you guys pick up the mantle and run a few one shots or run a short-term game to let the GM play for a while and let them rediscover their creative inspiration to get back on that horse.
Yeah, because I mean, dungeon masters need to play too every once in a while in order to know what it's like on the other side, but then also to exercise different muscles and to really get a full breadth of what it is. So yeah, that's a great idea, and do not be afraid to say that, because I've known plenty of dungeon master who's like, nope, I'm not gonna play anymore, and you're like, what just happened? Everything just stopped for whatever reason, and. I think it's great that you and Marisha have been, kind of finding your roles at Geek and Sundry even. Didn't she just say that she's a creative director there now?
Yeah, she's been creative director for about 7 months at Geek and Sundry, and it's been great. She's such an ass kicker anyway. Like of our relationship, she's the fighter, I'm the diplomat. And it's always been that way. She defends my honor. But she's also just such a great creative force, and she knows how to run a production in a way that is firm but also respectful. She doesn't trample on people, right, like a lot of people in the entertainment industry do, to get things done. And the rest of the creative team that came along with her to kind of sweep in and helm that part of Geek and Sundry at the start of the year has been working really hard to try and really make it something special for the community that's been around us for so long, both us, Critical Role, and Geek and Sundry, the entire brand.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really proud of her, and she's been just kicking ass, man.
She really is, and I respect that kind of production / leadership style of always, focus on the product and making it good and making sure you don't have to cut people down in order to get you on. Just like you said, I've been around many a theater / film production in which the director throws chairs or, something gets a little bit crazy, and you're like, you don't need to do that. You can inspire and get people to be creative in ways that doesn't feel combative. And so that was my philosophy really going into Stream of Annihilation, was to make sure that everybody knew that this was all about the community. This was all about everybody getting together, and there's always going to be problems and things won't always go exactly as you plan them, and you move on and you adapt and you change and you make sure everyone pushes forward with a smile on their face instead of a frown or feeling like you were just talked down to, and
I think the key word you said there is inspire. Like that to me is the greatest sign of good leadership, is when a person leads through inspiration. You push forward, you set out challenges that are ahead, and you work with your people to work on ways to solve those problems, those challenges, but you do so by inspiring other people to get there, and it's a conscious choice. You can rule through fear, you can rule through inspiration. And I think the people that run projects through fear, through intensity, through blame, they might get one thing done, but the rest of that team's going to burn out and leave.
Yeah.
And it's those that lift those around them, that continue to push that quality of all of us collaborating to make this happen. And that if tell me if it's too hard, but if we work hard together, we're going to be really proud of what's at the end of this. That type of inspiring leadership is lasting.
It's true. It is true. And I feel like you're subtweeting something that's happening in our world right now.
Yeah, maybe.
It's on the brains of a lot of us for sure. When I think you kind of lend that also to Force Grey. You kind of had that kind of feel of like, we're going to tell this story together. Obviously, you're not the leader of that group necessarily, but you are as far as leading the performance. I think it comes through.
Well, thank you. I think that's the job of a dungeon master, is not necessarily just to tell a tale, but to tell a story that allows you to elevate and inspire each player. You're trying to build a narrative and improvise a narrative in a lot of places that enables these other people to make choices and feel invested, to feel involved and accomplished, and feel like they have succeeded in some way as they set out to win this tale. And it's your job to be conscious that each player at the table has the opportunity to shine, that they have the opportunity to step up and make a difference. And at the end of it, the good games, the really good games, and I felt the same way at the end of Force Grey, each each player has the opportunity to really show what they can do, to dive into a moment of laughter, to dive into a moment of sincerity, and to really rise up to be bigger heroes than they began with. And that's kind of the magic of D&D, and that's kind of why I love coming back and doing fourth grade with you guys.
Nice, cool. Well, thank you so much for calling in and talking. It's always great because we can I love that you and I will just dive into, let's just talk about philosophy right now. We're like, let's talk about, personal ways. And did you read the message? And,
Right. Always a pleasure, man. Anytime.
Awesome. Cool. Where can people find out about like the Tal'Darai source book or anything else you want to, throw people at?
You can find the Tal'Darai campaign guide. It's going to be available in physical form at Gen Con at the Green Ronin booth. Otherwise, you can find it in game stores or for order in September, I believe. I think the pre-order's already closed, which is a good sign. And you can also see me on Critical Role every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Geek Ascendery's Twitch. You can follow me on social media at Matthew Mercer on Twitter. And I think that's it. That's all that really matters.
That's right. And we got Fourth Grade coming up in 1 hour. If you're listening to this on the Twitch, if not on the podcast, you should go watch it on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/DND. You can watch the video of this here interview as well as Fourth Grade episodes as they come out each Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Cool. I think that's it, dude.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Well, am I going to see you at in Providence?
I don't know if I'll be. I might be. When is that?
I think for HasCon.
HasCon? Oh, yeah. No, I will see you there.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, we'll definitely be able to hang out then.
Perfect. I'll see you then, buddy.
All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye. You want to just do a quick outro real quick? We're still recording? Oh, my gosh. I wish Shelly Mazzano